Hello everyone and welcome back to the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast with your host Charles Kiriakou. In this week's episode I'm joined by Lily Savage, who is the Managing Director for Europe Perm Recruitment at Discover International. Now Lily and I have been speaking for a little while and been trying to get this one in, and it's one that I really enjoyed, and we talked primarily around leadership, about her journey starting at Discover as a trainee recruitment consultant and working her way through the ranks, and that transition from being a biller, being a very successful biller, to then being a billing manager and now of course a managing director, and she still bills as well. She mentioned on the podcast, either on or off camera, that pretty much everyone in the business, minus the CEO, bills in the company. When she joined, there was only a few people. Now there are only over 100 heads globally with multiple offices. So I think that you guys are going to really enjoy this episode. Final thing before we get into this week's episode, you've probably heard me harp on about this most episodes now, but things are moving so damn quick with Milo. We started our early access last week. This week that this episode comes out, we've got our next cohort, and the following week is our final cohort of early access, and we're looking to take this product to market in October. So again, just a very quick synopsis of what we're trying to achieve here at Milo. Essentially, me as an L&D trainer, coach, sitting next to someone's side, helping them with call coaching them on the desk. It's not really scalable, it's not sustainable. I can't do more than one person at a time, so we've essentially built a product that listens into every single sales call, coaches you before the call, gives you prompts during the call, coaches you after the call. There's an area for you to practice, and you get a full suite of analytics on all the things that you've said, how you can improve, missed opportunities. Like, this bit of technology, in my opinion, is going to massively change how L&D is done in recruitment. It's going to really help people that are external trainers, internal L&D people, billing managers that don't have time to do an awful lot of that coaching. This will basically save all that time and basically help recruiters get at least 1% better every single call. Well, speaking of 1% better, of course, let's get into this week's episode. I'm sure that you guys are going to really like it. If you're new or you're coming back, make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, follow whatever platform it is. And let's get into this week's episode with Lily. Lily, thank you for joining us on the podcast. How's it going?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
No worries at all. Well, it's been, I can't remember how many times we've tried to organise this. I'm just buzzing we've finally done it, really.
many attempts, isn't
Absolutely,
it?
yeah. So look, we've got a wicked packed episode around leadership, and you've got quite an interesting story. So I think if we just start off, during the intro, I'll put like your LinkedIn profile and stuff, but your first job in recruitment was at Discover, started as a trainee, and now you head up the UK Perm division, right?
That's correct, yeah. Just celebrated 10 years with Discover,
congrats.
which is a huge milestone. So I was employee number 6 at the time, so that was 2016. If my memory's correct, we hadn't even done a deal in life sciences at that point.
Oh, wow.
So first sales job as well, so I was a waitress before, and then came in and was fundamentally learning what recruitment was, what sales was, what life sciences was, and just figuring it out as we went along. I then progressed, made my first hire at year 2, and have been growing ever since. All the ups and the downs that you have when you're hiring grads and experienced people and going on that journey. I then, at the start of this year, was promoted to MD to formally take over the Perm division for Europe.
Love it. So how many heads are you Discover at now then?
We're just over 100 globally now. Perm Europe sits at 24.
Yeah, wicked. Oh, amazing. Yeah, because I remember when I first saw your profile, because I can't remember who it was that I met when I first set my coaching business up, with Richard.
Yeah.
Remember he's got like a science background, isn't it?
Rich Johnson,
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
Multiple PhDs.
Yeah. Very intimidating. Like, I just set my coaching business up, and I said I did medical devices, and he just started throwing out really scientific terms, and I was like, I used to play like very ignorant on calls, because like, you know what it's like in life sciences, they're all super educated. I'm like the least educated person, so like I'm speaking to these people and I just used to just play dumb and just be like, educate me. That's kind of how I learned about the market. It is though, isn't it?
100%. My boss Steve, who used to say the best recruiters are the ones that act like they don't know a thing. Never assume, ask the best questions. When you're a grad, you ask every question, no matter how stupid you think it sounds, and you get all of the best information.
Yeah, so. 100%. Okay, cool. So you mentioned that you got promoted into a leadership role in just 2 years.
Yep.
Now, I don't know how common that is, to be honest, like how quickly people typically go into leadership, but part of this conversation we're going to have is talking a lot about, the behaviours and habits of good leaders, etc., etc. But I think it'd be quite interesting to go back to when you were a recruiter, and I guess what was going on through your mind transitioning into leadership.
Well, I think it was always a plan for Discover to grow, right? I think from the moment I joined, it was, we're going to grow, we're going to hit this many heads, you're going to be an integral part of that journey, which I was super excited about. And then of course, you get the thing like, gosh, am I really going to lead someone? I don't know the full job myself. And Adam and Steve at the time were obviously super reassuring, like, we still don't know the full job, it's recruitment, right? Yeah. Everything changes consistently, so you'll get 10 years in and you still won't know everything. But the most important thing, again, ask the right questions, lead from the front. So there was a lot of nervousness, definitely, but also a lot of mistakes made, right? I think it's the case whenever you're transitioning. I'd been out of uni 2 years, was looking at doing recruitment just as a temporary role to earn some cash, and then obviously fell in love with it. And made the first hire. She's actually one of my really, really good friends now. So she didn't stay in recruitment, but she was one of my really good friends. And you're figuring it out because you're managing people very similar age to you, sometimes older than you. And that is probably where there were a lot of challenges. And you've gone from, right, just one desk, that's all you've got to focus on. A lot easier to manage. And then, because when you hire grads, of course, you don't just hire one grad. So then you've gone, okay, I've gone from just my desk to now 3 grads, or however many grads it was at the time, to manage, and you're teaching them, no, plus means 0, 0, so you're having to teach them all of the simple dialing things. So yeah, that was, I guess, the first few hires that we made.
So if we go back to when you were a recruiter, because what I'm very interested in understanding is, as a coach, I'm always interested in like the behaviours and the habits of what makes people successful. I think there are some similarities between some of the behaviours that make a successful recruiter versus a successful leader. But we were speaking before we started recording that there are some people that just bill really good, and the manager goes, oh, you're like our top biller, you can be a manager. And then you just see it just crumble because they're just not a good leader. What would you say are like the top 3 behaviours or habits of a good recruiter versus a leader? Imagine if all of your consultants had their own personal recruitment coach, sat by their side every single day, listening into their sales calls, listening into their client and candidate meetings on video calls. Well, that's exactly what Milo does. Milo essentially is a desktop app, so it's not another Google Chrome tab, and it just sits over the screen there. And essentially, as soon as you make a sales call, it will vibrate and it will just show you that it's listening into a call. Prior to the call, if you wanted to practice, you can practice with digital personas that are completely bespoke to your market. Just cut and paste the job description or the CV, and essentially you can role play whatever particular recruitment scenario it is, whether it be a discovery call, interview prep, etc., against exactly who it is you're trying to target. So after you've done that, you can also go into your sales calls. So you can essentially get coaching before the call. You can get coaching during the call. So whilst you're live on a call with a client, you could be asking it questions down below here. It all completely just sits in the flow of work. You can see your entire comprehensive coaching report after every single sales call. You can get your performance plan as well and show your overall performance. And for leaders, we've essentially helped automate the weekly roundup. So it will highlight the best calls that your team have made, what people need the most amount of support from you. It's just so much easier, and it doesn't distract recruiters. The only click that a recruiter needs to make is the little X button on the side when it's live on a call if they don't want it listening in. Other than that, a recruiter doesn't need to do a damn thing besides be on the phone or be on video calls, speaking to people in their market. And the whole thing is to help recruiters get 1% better. So with that being said, that's enough from me. If you are interested, please book a demo with me, book a call with me. I'd love to tell you more about this, but let's get into the rest of this episode. Your experience.
I think the good recruiters, and I guess the ones that overlap, are disciplined, right? I think that to be good at either of them, you've got to be disciplined. Good recruiters, I think, are a little bit more selfish than leaders. I think that comes through, and that's sometimes where you see it not working out. We've had similar situations in the past where people think they want to lead and then realise how much of their own time it takes, and they don't want to. So being a good biller, you have to be a bit selfish with your time and a bit selfish with your desk. And then I think being a good human, that overlaps to both, right? People want to work with good people, people want to work for good people. So if you're a good human, there's a nice bit of overlap there as well. But to separate the two, and I think where probably your good or your great leaders from your great billers is really around the not putting yourself first, so putting the company first, being able to go, right, this might not be the best thing for me as an individual, but it is the best thing for the company. I'll give you an example. One of my top performers, he said to me one day after he'd been with me for a couple of years, was top biller. He was like, I really want to move to America. And I thought, gosh, right, I'm going to lose my top performer now. And instead of trying to convince him to stay in Europe and stay in Europe with us, he was like, okay, we'll make a plan. he ended up staying with me in Europe in the end, which was grateful. But I can remember my boss at the time, he said, that's such a unique leadership value there that you've gone, right, I'm losing my top performer from my P&L, but more important that he stays with the business, because he would have just gone somewhere else had he not.
Yeah, I'll never forget when we first had like proper leadership training. The managing director, before we started the training course, he got in a room like this, big whiteboard, and he said, as a recruiter, as all four of us were recruiters, one of them had a bit of leadership experience. And he says, you think of you, then the team, then the company. And if you flip that, that's what you're going to be thinking as a recruiter, as a manager, sorry. And that for me was probably the biggest mindset shift that I had to go through of, you're now leading a team, but your personal billings, even though, again, we were all similar to you, everyone in your company is billing still, that mindset shift of like, shit, for the last several years, I've just been focused on hitting my number. And now that I've still got a target, but they're not managing me on that target. So if I underperformed, but the team performed, it's fine. But I've still got to manage both. And for me, it was just like a bit of a challenge to kind of overcome. Did you ever have that?
Massively, and I think the pressure's different. That was huge. It's like when it was my own targets, my own KPIs, my own numbers, I'm like, cool, I can fully trust that I'm going to get that done. When you're getting pressure because your team aren't hitting their KPIs, you almost just want to jump in, pull some jobs, get some CVs out the door for them and drive them in that way. And that's such a fine balance between being a manager. It's like knowing when to jump in, when to drive it, or when to pull back and almost let them go on that journey themselves.
Yeah. So what was the biggest challenge for you then overall? Like, because again, 2 years into your career, and again, I'm just thinking about it from my perspective, like, because I did 2 years of contracts, then moved into permanent medical technology. But I think I was like, when did I become manager? I think it might have been like a couple of years into that job. And to what you said earlier, like the two guys that I was managing were like a few years older than me. That was another challenge. But when you transition from just a recruiter to a leader, what, from your perspective, from your experience, what would you say is like the biggest challenges that you had to go through?
One of the biggest challenges was knowing when to get into the weeds and when to not. I think naturally, when I first became a leader, I spent so much time picking apart the team's process, the processes, how they were doing recruitment, that I was spending probably 80% of my time on their processes, the way they were searching, the way they were doing BD, that mine was really falling by the wayside. And then I went the complete opposite way, and then I was like, right, I'm not doing any of that, and spent so much time on my own. And so that was a real challenge, is knowing when to jump in and really be hands-on, really pick it apart, but then when to take a step back and look at it from more of an overview perspective, especially because I was young as well. I'd never worked in another recruitment business, so that piece was particularly hard to juggle.
Hey guys, quick one before we jump back into the episode. If you are a recruiter who feels like half your week disappears into admin, follow-ups, data cleaning and jumping between several different tools, then listen up, because this episode is officially sponsored by Sourcewell. Sourcewell is the recruitment productivity platform, and I don't just mean another tool that you'll forget to use. I mean the tool that actually gives you your time back. You can run your entire desk in one place. Outreach, sourcing, data enrichment, multi-step email and LinkedIn sequences, inbox management, and even call notes. It's all there, synced, automated, and according to their stats, recruiters using Sourcewell see 56% higher response rates, double the pipeline, and approximately save around 8 hours of admin every single week. If you're like me, admin as a recruiter is the devil, and this productivity platform really helps you save a load of time. So reach out to Sourcewell, go to sourcewell.com. It's a fantastic platform. I've used it myself. I really believe in it, and I'm super grateful for them sponsoring the podcast. Let's get back into the episode. Yeah, I remember, I can't remember what episode I said this on, but my boss sat me down once and said, you are probably the best leader we have, but you're the worst manager. And I was like, right. But again, when you're new to like leadership and recruitment, like, I don't know if you faced this, but I certainly did. Like, I used to read loads of leadership books, but leading from the front and stuff is all well and good. Like making sure that you are there, like for your guys, for your girls, like you'll do anything for them. But then I wasn't doing any of the managerial stuff. Like what you said there about like going into their processes and stuff. I wasn't doing any of that because I thought, well, you guys are, you know, a few years older than me, you've done recruitment now, you kind of know what you're doing. And then when like the sales director would sit me down and go, what's happening with this job? And it was like, oh, yeah, it's a few CVs there, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, have you actually dug into this process? There's problems here. And I'm like, no, I haven't.
Because you just presume, don't you? And that's the other thing, when you hire and when you manage, you're like, I would do that, so I just trust that my team are going to do that. So that piece, and everyone I think has intentions to, but you know what it's like, it's recruitment, so it always will fall down at some point. I think one of the other challenges that we had is you're managing people that you get on really well with, right? It's recruitment has a particular type of person, usually people that gel really well. So then knowing when to jump friend mode, manager mode, and switch into those has been a really difficult balance, I think, over the years.
Because you've always got to think, right, as a recruiter, you need to have a high level of emotional intelligence to realise what hat that you're putting on depending on the call. If you've got a candidate that is, let's just say, very happy where they are, but you've dug into their role and stuff, they're either being underpaid, undervalued, the tech that they're selling, or the things that they're working on what they're actually really looking for, and you need to educate them. So then all of a sudden you're like an educator with them and saying, actually, this is what's happening in the market. Then you put them through an interview process and it's like, my cat died or something like that, and then now you need to be a counsellor, etc., etc. So you need to like learn to have different hats. I think it's the same with management, isn't it, or leadership, like knowing, like to your point, knowing when to be the friend, knowing when to put an arm around their shoulder, knowing when to stick a rocket up their backside. That I found to be quite challenging.
I think for me, Steve gave me a really brilliant piece of advice, and it's one of the easiest ways that I remember, and how I manage so much is like the intent behind everything. When you're a manager, if you're doing everything with the right intent, make sure your team know that, so that when you're going to have those tough conversations or when things aren't going as planned, both of you want the same thing, right? They want to earn lots of money, you want them to do really well and earn lots of money. Everyone's goals are the same, and I think that feeds into clients as well. Like everyone wants to place this job, everyone wants that. So as long as the intent behind it is communicated effectively, if the intent behind doing something is incorrect or it's a negative reason, then you're not doing it correctly. So that's how I always go into every challenge meeting, intent setups from the start. That's
actually really, really good advice, because I'll never forget when we started to do day plans. Like people would kind of loosely do them, but as we were growing, the managing director was like, right, everyone needs to be doing a day plan and sharing it every evening for the next day with their manager. I look back at that, and we used to have these pads on our desk where you could use a marker and then rub it off at the end of each day. I was always a bit of the classic undiagnosed ADHDer that just does a day plan, never stuck to it, and just like tried to speak to as many people as possible, book as many meetings, and then there you go, I've hit my number. But when you're a manager, you're like, okay, I need to have some sort of process, I need to lead from the front. But I look back at that experience on this point around the intent, and I was like, right, boys, need day plans. They're like, right, okay, what do you mean? It's just like, so here's this little pad, I need you to fill it out and I'm going to go through it. It's like, okay, and then one of the guys, mainly because I didn't articulate it very well and explain what the intent was behind it, just didn't see the value, so just didn't do it. So then my boss is over my shoulder going like, oh, why isn't he doing his day plan? I'm just like, oh, I don't know, like, and then we had to pull him aside and be like, what's the matter? And he was just like, what's the point? Like, why are we doing this? Like, I've been hitting my numbers, I've been fine. Like, now you're bringing in this new thing, I don't understand it. So we had to kind of work with him, and then luckily the sales director was way more experienced, explained the intent, and was like, this is kind of the reason why we're doing it. It was, oh yeah, sound.
Yeah, because then you're now scaling back and explaining it once they've already made their decision on something as well. And I think it's funny you say about when you've always worked a certain way, and then when you start to manage, you're like, how do I teach somebody to do this, how I've been doing recruitment, when it isn't scalable, right? And I think that's been a huge part of the journey over the few years, is like trying to create something that is scalable, creating the same values and behaviours in your team leaders that you need in their team. And because everyone does recruitment a little bit different.
Yes, 100%.
And so what we've focused a lot on in the last couple of years is what is the discover way, what's successful for us, and then trying to roll that out and but even that, when people have been working in a certain way for so many years, trying to get them to change slightly the processes or their ways of working, it takes a lot, right? And I think that's the brilliant thing about having people that are bought in on the journey and going with you, is that then they'll help steer the ship when needed.
I think it's also especially difficult, and I've seen this both with my experience and other managers that I've worked with, where let's call them slightly maverick characters that they do recruitment in their way that only really works for them. Unless you hire someone a very similar personality to them, like that might not necessarily work for them. And then when they step into leadership, trying to explain your process when there's not really a process, and people are like, And I remember one of the very first hires was like, right, so let me get this right. So you've got a list of 200 people that you just call through every week, and you go to as many events, you just meet them and don't even talk about business. Would you do? So what's your process for a discovery call? Find out about their kids, their family, and it's like, wait, what? Where's the commercial stuff for this? It's like, that comes. Like, it's just, there's no real process. And then you look at it and you go, well, this isn't scalable at all.
How do you explain that to
Unless
someone?
I hire someone that's basically a carbon copy of me that can just do that, it doesn't work. And like you said, you're going through a bit of a process of that at the moment. And I've spoken to a lot of businesses recently that have more of a hybrid model. So, you know, they need to make sure that there is a clear target operating model for people in all different geographical regions to kind of work towards. That's challenging in itself, though. So how are you guys currently going around that?
It is tough, and I think having multiple offices across different locations that have different focuses, it is difficult because culturally people are different, work ethic is different, expectations are different, fee sizes, all of that is different. So what we've tried to create is a baseline expectation that has certain variables depending on location, discipline, or whether you're doing contract and perm. But again, just coming down to the fact, okay, everyone was involved in it, and we speak about it quite a lot. It's like, okay, what is our culture? What does it take to be successful here? So when you are making changes to process, everyone knows it was coming. It's all brought in. It isn't just, right, here you go, guys, here's a document, follow this now. And so doing that has meant a lot of communication, a lot more than what we've had previous years between the different offices and the different leaders and the key stakeholders in each of those. And then just making sure everyone's bought in. And again, doing it with the right intent, right? Because everyone who's here wants to be part of a growing and scaling business, and we can't do that with everybody working in their own little pockets.
100%. I can't remember who it was that said this to me about basically having the baseline target operating model, so like the way that Discover, or whatever the name of the business is, qualifies candidates, generates leads, chase leads, etc., etc. But then essentially allowing consultants to have an element of freedom, flair to kind of do it the way they want to do it. And the best analogy is like for people like sports is like a football team. If you just have a strategy, a formation, etc., but don't allow people to kind of put their own twist on it, you get really stagnant play. And it's the same thing. I've seen it in recruitment offices where everyone has the same KPIs. You have scripts, which, by the way, I don't know if you have scripts. Not my cup of tea.
We don't, and we don't even do it for grads. We have like a list of questions. You need to get the answers to these.
That's fine. But
how
it's
you choose
to,
how you choose to ask, how you choose to get that out there is up to you. But we don't.
I've always been like, and again, I don't know whether this is just because of the way I am, like at school when they're like, you have to sit this way and do it this way, I used to just get like, oh,
ADHD again.
100%. I even now, like working, like building Milo, and we're like putting in corporate infrastructure stuff, and I'm just sat there going, oh my God. It's like, oh, like that. And I remember speaking to Naz and saying like, dude, like, I don't mind having like these corporate processes and policies in place, but like, you just kind of have to let me do me, because if I then have to, and I've done this before in my career where I've tried to do it the way that people are trying to tell me to do it, and it just comes across as very inauthentic. But I think if I look back at 2021 when, I don't know what your market was like, but mine was decimated during the pandemic, and then I had to rebuild a slightly different niche, critical care, because that was the market that was booming, of course. And I remember my sales director sat down and was like, look, still be you, but we need to kind of really formulate these processes. Like, you're not doing anything with your leads. Like, you generate them, but you don't do anything with them. So the way he done it was help me formulate a process, but kind of just the analogy he gave is like a little Hot Wheels car. You wheel it back like that. That's the process. Go. And I go like that. And I was like, shit, that actually makes a lot of sense. And now, as you know, so many recruiters either do or don't have ADHD, but a lot of them kind of want to do it their own way. But then it's articulating with the right intent what the process is and how to do it their way. So yeah, I mean, have you had that where you've had consultants that kind of want to do it their own way, but it's not the optimized way, if that makes sense?
Yeah, and I think, again, I'd rather always give somebody the trust to do it their own way first. I think if they're experienced. I think if you're a grad, then no,
Sure,
you grads have to follow the process. You have to at least.
By the way, just on that, when you have a grad that goes, "Now I'm going to do it this way," you're
yeah,
like,
I think I know the best way to do it.
I had that with the recent academy, and someone was just like, "Yeah, I don't think this question is going to really work." And I looked at him, I was like, "What do you mean, mate?" It was just like, "Yeah, I've been asking this question this way." I was like, "You've been asking a closed question like that, and you're skipping out the key bits of info. Why?" He was like, "Just think that would work." And I was like, "Oh, sorry, are you the one with 13 years recruitment experience?" He's like, "No." And I was like, "Do you think I know a little bit about recruitment?" "Yeah." "And you think your boss who's done 25 years in recruitment, do you think we know a little bit?" He was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Do it that way, mate."
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's like, you don't have an opinion yet. Just come in, do what you need to do. In that case, follow the questions we have asked you. With experienced recruiters, like, if they want to try something, 100%, I am always for trying something new when you're experienced. You know your market, you know the people you're speaking to. I'd rather you try it and fail than me say no and then you begrudge me and you're now pushing to try something, or you feel like you're being held back. And we'd rather always allow someone the freedom to try that for sure.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, it always makes me laugh. And the thing is, it's like when people have got fresh new ideas around doing things, like with BD, for example, I've had this with like newer people that go, "What about if we did our own event?" And like a couple of the senior leaders just like, "Mate, just get on the phone." I'm like, hang on. What do you mean by that? And they're like, "I'm thinking maybe we would like rent out a room in a restaurant, get a few key opinion leaders, and then like, we'll get a partner to sponsor it and stuff like that." I'm like, "That's a really good idea. Like, where have you saw somebody on LinkedIn talk about, is that a thing?" I'm like, right, we should listen to that. Shouldn't like hear ideas and go, "Nah, in the bin, you're a trainee, you shouldn't be allowed to think." But then you get some people that go, "Yeah, that checklist for candidate qualification, I've just made my own." You're like, what do you mean? Like, you've been doing the job a week.
This has been refined for years by multiple people with many more years experience than you. Just please stick to that. Yeah. But I do think there's something to be said. I think especially now hiring grads or ACs, it is a new world, right? It is a lot different to when I joined recruitment, and I think if they can bring great ideas that are changing the way we're doing it, 100%, let's try it. I think you've got to move with the times, and if you don't, you're just going to fall behind. I think if we're looking at AI and tech and how everything's developed, even in just the last 3 years, if you were on the front end of that, you would have benefited from that massively.
Yeah, 100%. So, what have you noticed from your experiences, the differences? Because you and I started in recruitment the same year, 2016, right?
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah, so 2016 for me, like when I first set my coaching business up, I used to make a bit of a joke with people on the phone saying like, I'm like a hybrid between the old school recruiter and the new school recruiter. Because I think when we got into recruitment, LinkedIn was still very much like a job board. Like the posts were, "This is what I'm hiring." No one really did a lot of personal branding. AI really wasn't a thing back then. A lot of agencies weren't thinking of innovative ways to do BD, like podcasts and creating their own events, roundtables and stuff. But specifically around the type of person that got into recruitment 2016 versus getting into recruitment 2026, what have you seen are the key differences?
I guess one of the major ones, and we talk about it quite a lot, is the expectation for remote working. That has been, like, we're hybrid and I'm fully on board with, once you get your first promotion, you could have a day from home. I think that's absolutely fine. But it's when we're interviewing people who have no recruitment experience, who want to work from home 3 days a week. We went hybrid after the pandemic, right? It was very much in office 5 days a week. And now the expectation that they should have remote working, I just don't think they realise how much you learn from that piece. I also think from a calls perspective, cold calls was very much how we won business, how we built the business, and I'm still very much an advocate for cold calling. But a lot of people these days, you don't even need to call your doctors anymore, right? You can do it all on an app. Everything's done on an app. So we've seen a lot of people move much more to booked calls, which is great, and I think there's a time and a place for it. But there's candidates, managers, and people that you cannot reach unless you cold call, and I think there is a skill there that is starting to diminish, which terrifies me.
I totally agree. I don't know what your market's like, but back in the day, we used to, this will make you laugh actually, we used to have a burner phone in the office. Okay. So, because we recruited field sales reps, right? This is a funny thing. I remember saying this to Naz, and he was just like, "That's so rascal," but it worked, right? So if they didn't have a number on like the data scraping tool, and sometimes the reps would have a mobile number on the website, sometimes they didn't, you'd have to call the office, which again, especially in tech, a lot of tech recruitment firms, there isn't an office because the company's fully remote, right? So they don't know that skill set. So we would call the office and then, oh, hi, can I speak to Lily, please? She's your London rep. It's like, who's calling? Da, 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 da. And then largely it's that whole thing of getting over the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get blocked, sometimes you don't. Sometimes what we do, if they go like, oh, I can't patch you through, I can get them to give you a call back. What's the best number for you? So I'd be like, oh, it's Joe Bloggs from so-and-so hospital. Here's my mobile. And then give them the burner phone number. And then the rep would call back, leave a voicemail saying, hey, it's Joe Bloggs from medical company A. Give me a call back on this number. And then you'd wait a couple of hours and then call.
Yeah.
How do you get my number? And it's just like, oh, we use innovative ways these days. But it's just like thinking outside of the box. And the reason why I bring this anecdote up is because I've sat down next to recruiters being an external trainer and they're like, oh, I don't have a number, so I've just emailed. And I'm like, okay, go on the business, there's a number there. It's just like, what's the point? And you're like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
there's an 0203 number, just call it. And then there's just like, what's the point?
And I think, well, a lot of the work I do is across Germany and Switzerland, and you will get put through. And recently, when we're getting such a positive response from cold calls now, because they're like, it's so nice to speak to someone, it's so nice not to just be another email, another spec, another this. Our clients are really appreciating an actual phone call, right? And I think in the world of AI and tech, there's so much to be said for just picking up the phone and letting them know you're human, getting in front of them, going for face-to-face meetings. I think that's, for now, what will really separate good billers from great billers is just picking up the phone, which is such a simple thing. Yeah,
I've had so many people on the pod like talk about the newer generation of people coming in, and I've initially, like when I moved into L&D, the main chunk of the workforce was Gen Z. Like my last company, I was one of the youngest ones there, and I did see that shift in mindset around like I don't want to give them a call, I feel nervous. I'm like, mate, you're a senior consultant. Like, what do you mean? Like, call them. Like, what I don't understand. It's quicker to email. It's quicker to message on Teams. I'm like, I was completely gobsmacked. Like, what has happened? And then when I started doing some research into the fact that no one has to call anyone for anything anymore, you don't knock for your friends like anymore. Like, they have never had to do that. You know what I mean? Like, so there is a bit of a shift, but I'm always interested to hear how leaders kind of deal with that. And a lot of people have said it largely comes to the hiring process, like the interview process and explaining why we do certain things. But let's be real, and I'm sure you've had this, someone could ace an interview, they get in and they're just not that way. So I'm wondering what you've kind of put in place to get people to have that kind of phone first mindset.
Yeah, so we do, I think this is, I'd like to think a lot of recruitment companies do, but we do like a trial hour where they come on desk with us. And we'll just get them to call a couple of candidates, a couple of active candidates, just to see how they are picking up the phone. Because if you see hesitation when you've had zero training, you've in an office of people you don't even know the name of, if you've got hesitation, a bit of hesitation, of course, is normal. But if they're really not comfortable with that, that's going to be a long journey to get them up and running, to feel comfortable doing that. So we definitely do that. And then we're just very transparent with them. I think I'd like to think we've really improved our interview process over the years, but definitely earlier on I can remember us hiring grads and there was a lot of fear when they were reaching for the phone, and that isn't the case anymore. And I think it's because we've got phone first mindset in the office. It's the case for everyone. Everyone is very much on the phones in our office, and naturally you're not being listened to. So I'd like to think that's probably really helped.
I've got a friend of mine, I won't say who it is, but I got them their first job in recruitment when we did healthcare recruitment. So that office was, nurses aren't on LinkedIn, so it was literally just everyone was on the phone. It's a great buzzing atmosphere, people walking around. We used to do the old school, you can't sit down until you get through to a person, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so that person had been in that environment, worked at another company, bit of a boutique company in Moorgate, quite phone first, then transitioned to a company doing US recruitment. And I remember calling him after work and be like, oh, how's your day been, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, mate, no one's been on the phone all day. Yeah, and he's like, he doesn't mind being the only one on the phone, but then it gets to a point where it's just like, I've been the only one on the phone all day in an office of like 40 people.
It's insane. It's a sales floor, right? And I think that is so important to maintain. You want people to feel energized when they come onto the floor. You want people to feel excited about what's happening, talking about deals, interviews. And every now and then I can remember someone in the office, he loved to be like, guys used to almost summon everyone to be a bit quiet and listen to him on the phone, because he was either overcoming an objection, pitching in a candidate, or putting a job off the back of a reverse market. And I think that is so brilliant for culture, and it's brilliant for learning. And you want to be there, right? If nobody wants to go into an office instead, and no one's on the phone, and then people are scared to pick up the phone. So.
Yeah, one of my first ever external training jobs that I ever had, tech recruitment firm, and they set me up on their dialer so that I could listen into each call. I could see who was on the phone, and I could just click and then listen into it, and then click a button to whisper to them and blah blah blah. And I remember both the founders were like, "We're going to go for lunch with this client, Charles. You're in charge. Make sure people are on the phone." Blah blah blah. I was like, "Yeah, cool." Right, come on guys, on the phones, like I'm here to help you, like let me know if you're gonna make a call, I can help you before it, blah, 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 let's get the energy, yeah, like that, cool.
Yeah.
Half an hour goes by, I'm sat there going, what's going on? And you can hear like that, and I stood up and I was like, guys, who's gonna make the first phone call? I was just like, I'm just replying to a candidate. I'm like, guys, you've literally got a 2-hour BD sprint with me, no one's on the phone, and someone made a call, I tune into it, it's literally delivering an interview. I'm like, what is going on? And then by the end of the 2-hour sprint, I think I listened into 2 calls.
Really?
And then I was just like, guys, like, obviously they didn't pay for my time, but their boss did. And I was like, it's a massive waste of time and money. Like, what, you've got me here. You've got someone with over 10 years of experience, who's been exceptional at BD. You're not making any calls. Oh, people just don't answer. You haven't made a call.
Yeah.
Don't give me this bullshit.
People do answer. People answer their phone.
Just fucking call them. And it really frustrated me. I remember going home and I was actually more tired from sitting there twiddling my thumbs for 2 hours and trying to get people to get on the phone. And I was like, this is just frustrating.
I think energy is what you can't train on, right? Energy, drive, those, obviously in senior recruiters, you will definitely get dipped here and there, and managing them through that is key. But you, in your first year of recruitment, you should not be training people or getting people motivated, driven, and getting them to be excited about the job. That is probably your most exciting point of your career, because you're coming in and the world is your oyster. So that's when you want them to be super, super driven. So if that's not happening early, then that's a problem.
Selfishly for me, it's the most boring thing in the fucking world.
I can imagine.
Just sat there, just waiting for people to pick up the phone. You're like, what is the point?
Just start making calls yourself.
I did that. I did that once. I just turned around. I was like, no one's going to make sales calls. I'm just going to BD some recruitment firms. And people were like, oh, you're gone then. And I was like, no, genuinely, like I've got the dialer up here. I'm just going to start calling from my spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And at one point I started doing it, and I was just walking around on the phone. I was just like, I will hang up on this client if you guys get on the phone so I can help you, because that's what I've been paid to do. But I'm not going to just sit here and just fucking doom scroll LinkedIn waiting for you guys to get on the phone. But anyway, that was so annoying. When it comes to getting recruiters up and running, upskilled, and obviously people have those peaks and troughs, especially with trainees, right? Like they might start with a bang and then think they're Billy Big Bollocks and then just never bill ever again. Have you got like a process to kind of get people up and running, and like talk us through that?
Yeah, and I think it's treating everyone as an individual, I think we've had grads or ACs that come in and, you know, smash it, do a deal like so quickly, way quick. And, you know, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's luck. They did do the groundwork, but if you're doing a deal in your first month in our market, partly is luck. But then we've had people who have taken a really long time to get going, and they've put all of the efforts in, the building blocks are correct. It actually took me ages to do my first deal. I think it took me 9 months to do my first deal, which was I got close a couple of times, but yeah, 9 months. So naturally, if somebody's doing all of the right stuff, we'll always give them the time to get there. And also working with them to identify why that is. Like, we spend a lot of time looking at data, looking at ratios and working through that. And everyone having like a set plan of what they're going to do to get to the next level. I think, especially early doors, getting those promotions in quickly is super, super important to keep them engaged and keep them motivated. It never wants to feel easy, but it never wants to feel like it's a million miles away either. And just the little things like the big billers trip. So being able, as a AC or a trainee, having like a reasonable target for your big billers trip is super important in your first years, because how exciting in your first year of your recruitment job, you get to go on an amazing big billers trip to Costa Rica or Rio or whatever it is. And it's the little things like that to keep them engaged in that first year, I think is super important.
That is massive. My first ever job, I was only there for a few months. It was social care recruitment. And I was an apprentice, and part of the apprenticeship scheme was once you pass that and get your qualification, then you can start earning commission. So if you imagine for your first year and you're knowing that no matter how many deals you do, you're not going to earn commission yet, it's a bit like demotivating, because you get into recruitment because there's an ability to earn good money. And I'm seeing the senior recruiters going like, oh, what do you reckon about this Rolex? And I'm sat there fucking struggling to pay the bus to work and whatnot. And then the director one day wrote up on the board, like, I think I was the first one in that cohort to do a deal 360 in my first like few weeks or whatever, probably a little bit of luck, but you know. And then she said, oh, you got one contractor out, so when you get your, need to get 11 more, and then you can start earning commission. And I remember thinking, what?
Wow.
And that was like an
That's
arduous
insane.
process, although it was quite early on, and I had a bit of hand-holding from one of the seniors. I was like, that's a lot. That's just way too much. That's like telling an 18-year-old, oh, you only need to save 50 grand. I know you don't have a job yet and you're still at uni. If you save 50 grand, you can get a deposit for a flat. It's like, it's too big.
So far away.
And then when I moved, after a few years, moved to Projectus, did medical technology, I think it was when was it? I think they went to their trip in September, and they were sending pictures of them in like the VIP places in Ibiza, biggest bottles of champagne, and it was me, the marketing manager, and a couple of the grads in the office, and I'm looking at WhatsApp going, you fuckers, like you absolute fuckers. But similar to what you said, the target wasn't too crazy. Like they did say to me, like, look, you're not going to go on this trip this year, but next year you should be on it if you hit these numbers. That motivation of seeing those fuckers sitting around a jacuzzi, drinking champagne, and like, you know, going to the wickedest like parties and stuff, I was like, there's no way I'm not going next year. And that for me hooked me in so much.
100%, and I think it's the same for everyone, and regardless of whether you party, whether you don't party, being away with your colleagues who you like, seeing a new country and having it all paid for, why wouldn't you want to be there? I love them personally. They're my favourite. And then like lunch clubs as well. I think those, being able to get on those early on in your career. So every now and then we'll set a lesser target for any new grads that have joined, just to really help them get a taste of what it's like to be successful in recruitment. Because there's hard days and there's days where you want to call it a day. But seeing those little wins throughout, I think.
Do you remember your first ever lunch club?
Do you know what I do. It was Shakafuyu. Gosh, this was years ago. I was about to say I didn't, but it was. It was a 9-course tasting menu. And I can remember I was the youngest person there, most junior person there. I could just, every course that came out, I'm like taking pictures and just couldn't wait to go and show my mum. Like, Mum, that I've made it. I'm on a 9-course tasting menu. And I think stuff like that. But I've still got the picture of it on my Instagram and things like that. So yeah, they're good.
It's like, I'll never forget the first one. When I qualified, my boss said, where do you want to go? And I was like, I don't know, because my mum was always on, like, not always, but was on benefits. We didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah, same.
We used to go to Harvester, and my mum wouldn't let me buy a steak because it was too expensive, right? So now he's saying, what restaurant do you want to go into London? We've never been to any posh restaurants. I'm like, I don't know. But I remember seeing some things on Instagram about Sky Garden, and I was like, that looks really cool. And he went, cool. Booked. And I was like, what? He was like, we're going to go Sky Garden. We're going to go this afternoon. I was like, or whenever it was. I was like, Jesus Christ. Went, and like, obviously I'm in awe. I was like, this is incredible. We're looking out like that, having a glass of champagne. And I looked at the menu and I saw the prices. I was like, oh shit.
The fear.
Oh my God. And my manager next to me was like, hey mate, we'll get a bottle of rosé, bottle of red, bottle of white as well, champagne, what cocktails you want. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, that's a lot of money. And I looked at the menu and I'll never forget it. They had rabbit risotto and fillet steak. And I love rabbit risotto and I love fillet steak, but it was so expensive. So I was like, oh, I'll just get the cheapest thing on the menu. My boss just came over to me and was like, why are you ordering the cheapest thing? You've just qualified, you've billed X amount. What do you actually want? And I was like, I don't want to take the mick. And he went, no, I'm buying. What do you want? And I was like, I really like that and that. He went, get these two for this guy here. And then I remember like sitting down eating and I was like hugging my boss, like, I'm so grateful for this, blah, 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 because I've never had that kind of thing. And then it kind of gives you a bit of a taste. And then like my boss after, you know what it's like, you have a few drinks, you have that heart to heart with your manager. And he sat there, was just like, look, you can be really good in this industry as long as you put the hard work in, like the numbers we set, blah, 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 blah. Like you can do this every single month. You can pick a wicked restaurant, we'll take you to Ibiza, we'll do all these kinds of things. And that's what really drew me in. And I was like, so loyal after that.
I agree with you, and I think as a leader, I forget now the importance of those moments. You almost forget that that's why what keeps you in is like being out with your team, having drinks and letting them offload and letting them ask you all of the questions and things like that, because that's exactly what it was for me. And when I was with Steve, he massively drove that loyalty in me, and that's why I would never leave, like never consider another business. I was fully ingrained into Discover because it was just a whole nother world that I did not think was possible. And that's the opportunity, right? I guess with recruitment.
And that's what I love about this industry as well, because like I don't know what your background was, but it sounds somewhat similar. Like we didn't have a lot of money.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like I remember when I got into sixth form, I didn't have shoes. Like, this sounds terrible, but I didn't actually have like like we changed the dress code, so you had to wear suits because they turned into like a business sixth form or whatever it was. And I remember saying, like, Mum, I've got an open day, but I don't have any shoes. And she goes, what do you mean you don't have any shoes? Like, they don't fit me anymore. So I had to call my uncle and be like, have you got any spare shoes? And he had some rascal, like, Gucci shoes or whatever. They were 3 sizes too big. So I had to put on like 4 or 5 pairs of socks just so they would fit. And then I come into the open day for sixth form and people are like, oh, clown shoes like that. And I'm just like, we can't afford fucking shoes. So that when you get into recruitment and you're seeing people talking about buying Rolexes and stuff, and you're like, the only people I know that buy Rolexes are drug dealers. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, wait,
what's going on here?
This is possible. And then when you start like seeing the success, and to your point about having that manager, like when you are out having a couple of drinks to kind of put an arm around you, because we were talking earlier about the different hats that you put on. That's such an important thing, and I feel like sometimes, especially with like working from home a lot, that sometimes kind of gets missed. I feel
it does, especially with Fridays not being in the office as much, right? I think, you know, Fridays was always the day you'd be out together, out as a unit, and so with that not being the case, it's difficult to be. And with the upbringing, mine was exactly the same. So council estate, I think it's very much a common theme, isn't it, in recruitment? And I can remember I was on my interview. And they was like, you know, why are you here? What motivates you? And I was like, I just really want to look after my mum, and burst into tears. And I was like, brilliant, I've ruined that. And then they still hired me. And I can remember the first commission that I got that was a really good commission. All I wanted to do was take my mum on holiday. And like, that was such a massive accomplishment for me, was like being able to take my mum on holiday, which was absolutely unheard of. And seeing my team doing the same thing now is incredible. So all of my team leaders have bought their own houses, and seeing them go on that journey where they've come from similar backgrounds and wouldn't have been able to do it, that switch is where it comes from. Well, I'm so proud of myself to, gosh, I'm so proud of you now and what you've achieved. I think is a beautiful transition.
Yeah, I think the first thing I ever did when I got a big commission check was take my mum to the Shard. And it was around Christmas time, and she was obsessed with Alexander McQueen, the designer.
Okay, yeah.
And I had an Alexander McQueen Christmas tree in there as well. And I took my mum. My mum did exactly what I did on my first lunch club. She looked at the menu and she was like, oh, Jesus, I will just get tap water. I went, Mum, get what you want. And she just couldn't fathom it. Do you know what I mean? She was just like, oh, I was like, I know you like fillet steak. She was like, Charlie, it's like £100. I was like, it's fine, buy it.
And it's such a mindset shift, isn't it? And it takes a little while, and I still catching up with that as well now. And I think, but it does take a while to go, right, you do not have to buy the cheapest thing. You don't have to penny pinch anymore, because now you're comfortable.
Yeah, so. It's that's one of the nicest things about recruitment. And I said this in a few episodes, that it's funny that 19, 18-year-olds can earn insulting amounts of money in this job. Like you can earn like crazy money in this, but there are things that people need to do to get there.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So with the consultants that you have worked with, still currently work with, like, because you've got some big billers in the business, what would you say are some of the kind of common habits, behaviours of those people?
Is like an unwavering belief. I think that's the first and foremost, is like knowing they can do it. Whether they can achieve, like, build the numbers that they've said they're going to build, but they go into every year going, I am going to build £1 million this year, or I'm going to be the top biller this year. And every single one of them believes it. And I think they go into every day attacking the day, knowing that day is taking them closer. I think not everyone can be 100% every single day, that is the case, but not allowing that to seep into weeks to seep into months, and actually going, right, let me make the most of it. What have I got to do to get myself back on track? Because it can be so easy to just get into repeating the same call lists, the same searches, the same things over and over again, that you've now lost a month, you've lost a quarter, and before you know it, you're at half year point and you've done 25% of what you should have been doing. So the ability to step out of that. I think also genuinely treating candidates and clients well. It sounds a bit soft, but I genuinely, if you look after your clients and your candidates well, they will always come back. They'll always, again, know the intent from why you're doing things. I think I've had some horror stories over the years when I interview people, but I genuinely want to find the best candidate for my client, not just someone that will take the job and not just somebody that will accept. And I think that's the mindset that we've always been, like, the perfect candidate is out there. You've got to find them, like unturn every single rock that you need to find that, and be honest with your clients, be honest with your candidates if there's delays, and treat people well. And I think that's really what separates it, unwavering belief in yourself and treating the people around you well, whether that's your team, clients or candidates.
That's really, really good feedback. I had I think it was the COO or CCO of Faden International on the podcast. As we're recording this, it was last week. He was employee number 2 or whatever it was, scaled the business to like multiple thousands globally, etc. And when I asked him kind of the mindset he had back then, both as a recruiter and as a leader, etc., and the first thing he said was exactly what you said around the unwavering belief. Yeah. And he said that we instilled into every single person that we will be the best, that our service is better than anyone else, the candidates will find we better. The minute that diminishes, you need to just wake yourself back up. And he was like, for even just in general business and in life, like, yes, you've got to really work hard. And I've said this to people all the time, you can work really hard, but if you don't have that belief, you're going to end up in mediocrity. If you have all that belief, and we know the people that do the mood boards at home and stuff like that, and then come in and go, oh, I've had a good day, I'm going to go home now. And you're like, well, you've not really done what you said you're going to do. So you have to marry the two together. And a lot of people, they don't want to do the hard work, and some people just struggle to believe.
And I think the belief is what makes you do an extra call. It's what makes you stay later, because you're like, this next call that's going to change my year, my week. And so I think that is what one of the biggest things is.
With the belief thing, do you think that's just something that is almost them, or can someone almost like learn to have that belief? Do you know what I mean?
I think so, and I think probably that's part of a good leader's job, right? If you can see an ability in somebody that they don't quite see yet themselves, taking them on that journey, because once they hit something that they never thought was possible, they'll be like, oh right, maybe I can, and then they continue to repeat that. That is what a great leader would do. So I do think it can be possible, but I still think there's got to be a burning desire, or there's got to be something there for sure. And I had a joke with my colleague Paul recently, because when we see somebody doing something really challenging, like an acrobat or something like this, we're like, I look at it and I go, if I tried hard enough, I think I could do that. And I just think that's the kind of thing that most really good recruiters have. It's like, I could probably do that if I tried. And I'm not going to try acrobatics, that's for sure. But it is that type of mentality.
I think it was an operations person I worked with, and they called that just the recruiter mindset. Yeah. Just like recruiters will just see someone and go, I could do that. And it's just like, it is funny, isn't it? Because I feel like the best recruiters I've ever worked with have that mindset. Yeah. They'll see someone deadlift 501 kilos, world record. They're like, if I train hard enough, I could do that. You're like, no, you couldn't.
And they will do it though, just now to prove you wrong.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's so true. It's so true. Awesome. Well, look, we've been talking for a little while now. I think there's so many wicked little gems in there. I think there was one more thing I was going to ask you, actually. There's a couple, but the second last thing I will ask you is, if there's someone listening to this that is thinking about promoting someone to team leader, or someone that is moving into leadership for the first time, what would you say is like your key bits of advice over your career for someone making that move?
Don't forget about your own pipeline. That is super important. It will fall off a cliff quicker than what you expect. Always give them the right intent, and always operate from the right intent. It's one thing to say this, I'm doing this from a good place. If you know you're not doing it from a good place, it's not the right thing. So genuinely focus on moving correctly. And then the fourth one, enjoy it, right? Get to know them. You're taking somebody on a journey where you can really change their life. So enjoy it. And it's the best part of the role, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Cool. Well, look, as you know, the final question I end every episode with is, following today's episode, how can people get 1% better in recruitment?
Believe you could get 1% better in recruitment. I think that is the key thing. You've never completed it. It's probably the one thing in the world which you can never fully complete. And believe that you can. Love it.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you very much for coming on the show today. People that have made it this far, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Charles.
Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode. If you enjoyed, make sure that you like this video. If it's on YouTube, drop us a comment. Make sure you're subscribing and following on Apple, Spotify, whatever platform it is that you tune into this podcast. We have been releasing episodes every single Tuesday since September 2024, so super consistent. Couldn't do it without these phenomenal people that come on the show, and of course you that listen and watch every single week. If you or someone that you know are interested, I'm always looking for more people to come on the show, as long as they have got some passion and some value to offer our industry, in hopes that every episode we of course help people get 1% better in recruitment. Then shoot me a DM and we'll get you or whoever it is booked into the show. But thank you again so much for tuning in. Really appreciate all the support, and we'll see you next week.